What an accomplishment it is to be able to say that your movie and TV show franchise has been around for nearly 15 years now. What an incredible feat it is to have created an interconnected cinematic universe where crossovers are common and ongoing storylines are plentiful. What an outstanding task of steadily increasing the production and planning out the next 10 years of what's to come. But along with all this amazingness can eventually come a wave of complications and degradation of quality. Alongside the luxury of exploring new and different avenues is the ever so difficult task of retaining enough consistency to stay recognizable. And as we approach the ending of the overstayed welcome of what we got in Phase 4, I can't help but ask the question, is the MCU being spread too thin? One of the largest battles that many entertainment companies have to deal with is being careful to not tread into the murky waters of quantity over quality. Look, not every project is going to be the biggest hit with everyone, but no matter what or how much is put out, it has to be the quality expected to come from that brand, if not better. And the quality of the larger portion of this fourth phase of the MCU has been questionable, to say the least, specifically in the writing. What started as a clear effort to establish itself as a true competitor in the world of film has now become one of the most half-assed, lazy attempts at story constructing I've witnessed for some time. In addition, there's the issue of overall connection between movies and shows alike. One of the things I hear people say the most is after Endgame, there seems to be no cohesion. Everyone is off doing their own thing, and nothing seems to be leading towards much of anything in particular, which is absolutely a fair point. Though we should not feel reliant upon the crossing over from one hero's journey into another's, it is nice not having to question if a specific project is even part of the cinematic universe they've worked so hard to create. For example, Moon Knight. Though there's no reason to definitively say it doesn't take place in the MCU, and though it would make absolutely no fucking sense if it didn't, it's quite the task to find a connection to the universe we've come to know. The most we really got was Taweret mentioning that there are many planes of existence other than the one we live in, clearly being a reference to the ancestral plane witnessed in Black Panther. But that's about it. There's no references to such events as the blip, no cheesy entrances from established heroes at convenient times, no true way of identifying when the story takes place other than the chronological order being listed on Disney+. Now all of that is more than fine, honestly. A show should be allowed to explore the depths of a singular character without feeling obligated to focus on a world with a decade plus of stories around it. On the flip side, having no apparent ties makes it more of a struggle for the general audience to appreciate the fact that it's connected at all. Then, towards the opposite end of the spectrum, you have a show like Ms. Marvel, where even someone that has barely seen any MCU projects before would be able to guess it takes place in the same world as the Avengers. Now, those connections work in the show's favor and cause no hindrance overall, as they are a driving force for Kamala as a character given her obsession with superheroes, but that also makes it a rare exception to the point being made here. That's more leading into questioning if some projects contain too much connection. Now, I know that may come off as ridiculous given everything I just mentioned and wanting there to be an established link. However, this is quite possibly one of their largest issues to be concerned about, and it's also the thought that originally inspired me to make this video in the first place. Let's specifically take a look at the example of someone attempting to make sense of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness if they haven't seen WandaVision. First and foremost, I personally love the connection between these two projects. Though Multiverse of Madness had overwhelmingly mixed reviews, I had a lot of fun with it and appreciated the continuance of Wanda's downward spiral into becoming a villain. The problem here is potentially having zero context as to what the hell is happening. Hear me out. Imagine you're someone who doesn't have Disney+. Crazy, I know. Or maybe you don't want to bother with another streaming service, perhaps it's just not in your budget, or maybe you've got it but you don't care about the MCU shows, but you've still seen all the MCU movies up to this point. Okay, so the ending of the first Doctor Strange movie showed him becoming and accepting the role of Sorcerer Supreme. He fades to dust in Infinity War, comes back in Endgame, fucks up a spell in No Way Home, and then we get to Multiverse of Madness. Now enter in the villainous Wanda in search of her children as the antagonist, and my oh my how the eyebrows would begin to raise. Wait a goddamn moment, you must be thinking. Last time we saw Wanda in Endgame, she was an emotional wreck for sure, but nowhere near on the verge of being a villain. The second her ambitions are revealed, your following thoughts must undoubtedly be, who the fuck are these kids? When did Wanda have kids? To have Wanda's arc be such a central plot point of a Doctor Strange sequel was already a bit of a risk to some degree, but creating a scenario where your audience can't even comprehend the happenings of a film unless they've seen a show exclusive to a specific streaming service is just asking for problems. Once again, I can see somewhat both sides of the fence here. On one hand, that level of connectivity is showing that even with how big they've gotten, they still want to bring as much together as they can. But on the other hand, it produces a dilemma for a portion of the audience audience that hasn't seen the preceding project for one reason or another. And that can easily drive many people away. There must be such a vast level of confusion on certain occasions for some who only watch the movies. And I'm sure to an extent they can feel left out at times. Sadly, it feels like even those who do watch the shows don't get fully rewarded for making the time for that content. For instance, what causes the multiversal rift that leads us to seeing Sony characters in No Way Home? Wanda's use of chaos magic when possessing the town of Westview, you may think? Or how about the death of He Who Remains in Loki? That caused the sacred timeline to crumble back into the plethora of universes we know as the multiverse. No? Okay, well then it must be due to the actions of Infinite Ultron and What If in his battle against the Watcher and the multiversal Avengers. Nope. None of those are relevant. Even though each one was introduced as being groundbreaking moments for the MCU, they don't seem to amount to much when it comes to the events of the movie, because in No Way Home we are introduced to yet another excuse to give us multiversal access. A magic spell gone wrong. Though it's more than fine to introduce a separate route of getting to the same destination, why bother when there's so many existing options within the shows that are way more plausible than oops, my spell went wrong? Especially when it was already known that the preceding Multiverse of Madness would focus so heavily on a storyline introduced in a show, so clearly they're not against the concept. The biggest argument for that could be that it was a joint project with Sony, and that's understandable, but my point still stands that the majority of the movies and shows in Phase 4 feel like they're more just having drinks at the same time as each other, as opposed to drinking at the same bar together. And all this leads right back to a point raised at the beginning. Getting this big runs the risk of seeing quantity over quality, which I believe is what we're witnessing now. It pains me to say it as someone who enjoys seeing so many stories get a chance to come to life, but if they aren't going to be treated with care and respect, then is it even worth making them? No, it's not. Should a movie or show be made simply because it can be, regardless of its relevance or importance in the larger story being told around it? No, it shouldn't. Is the MCU being spread too thin? Lately, yes, it is. With the vast number of upcoming projects that we know of so far listed for Phase 5 and 6, the attempt to remain positive and excited begins to become more and more strenuous, given some of them feel out of place regarding the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars Avengers films they're building towards. But even with all of that being said, Marvel fatigue has yet to set in on this guy. But knock on wood and everything else around you, because I want it to stay that way. I love Marvel and want them to get their shit back together. My advice at this point would be to pull back the focus to only the movies and shows that fit within the boundaries set by your overarching story, or complement it at the very least. And for any potential projects that are considered less crucially important, at least make sure to find and pick some people that are genuinely passionate about the characters and source material to be behind them. Because if you're gonna make something, then make it well. Alright then, that's basically everything I wanted to say about that. Don't forget, if you're still listening this close to the end of the video, that probably means you like it, so why not hit that thumbs up to prove you do? And while you're over there, check out how fun it is to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell. It's quite possibly the most fun thing to do on YouTube. Okay, bye.